When you get a youth intake preview that looks like this, you tend to get a little bit excited. So who knew there were so many absolutely outrageous Colombian free agents knocking about that want basically no money? Well, today I have a lot of players to introduce you to. Right now over on stream, of course, we are doing the transfer window, trying to make what has already become a very, very fun squad even better. So join us over there, of course, right after you watch this. And all the VODs, of course, can be found over on the second channel, linked in the description if you want to watch the streams in their entirety the day after each upload. After our absolute domination last season, winning the league in the second tier by 26 points, we were given a fair old chunk of money with which to try and strengthen the squad for our first season back into the top flight, despite the club not being in the most stable financial position at the moment. We'll revisit that ridiculous youth intake preview a little bit later in the video, but for now, I want to talk to you about Colombia and Senegal, because what you're about to see is essentially a showcase of some of the fabulous talent that you can pick up from those nations, even if you're managing a relatively small club in a relatively small league. So, let's get started, shall we? You wanted to cuddle? Well, cuddle me, woman. Embrace my manhood. No, Jesus, that's not what I meant. As always, it's not what I meant. Several of the older players from the original squad have now left the club after their contracts have expired, and of course their wages needed to be kind of moved off the bill as they were on a little bit too much. Those include Zoltan Stieber and of course Patrick Poor. Unfortunately, we did lose one of my favourite players from last season, and that being Janos Sipe, who sadly was out of contract at the end of the season and took a better offer basically. We offered him what we could, but at the time he chose to join Rujan Berok for 2.8k a week, and we just simply couldn't match that. A smattering of our younger talent also left the club over this period to go out on various loan spells throughout the season, just to sort of get them some game time and some experience, and hopefully they can begin to develop that way. So let's talk Colombians. At the very start of the window, we received, as you do, a scouting inbox item. Nothing really that surprising there, but it was absolutely chock-a-block full of Colombian players. Now, we noticed that they all seem to have the exact same agent, which is presumably why we were seeing them. So we did what any sane person would do. We brought them in on trial. And before those trials had even expired, we'd been won over by them and offered every single one of them contracts. And, well, let me just tell you, if you're managing in smaller database leagues and you've got a decent enough amount of nations turned on to get Colombian players, this is the dream. First up, there was Gustavo Carvajal, 23-year-old on £700 a week. You can see that he's had a really solid season as far as his progression goes. He was brought in to be that ball-winning midfielder to give Qatar a little bit of a run for his money in that role. But in addition, he has 16 long shots, which we felt at the time, given the way the match engine was, could be very, very useful indeed. So just what a pickup for free. And alongside him is quite literally Juan Pablo Diaz, 24-year-old Colombian at this time, sitting in that roaming playmaker role. But the key thing about him is that he actually can play as a roaming playmaker according to the game. It's chipping in with goals, chipping in with assists, just an absolute rock in the midfield. Absolutely love him. Probably my favourite signing of the year. Our best player? I don't know actually. Might be someone like Diaz, or could be Radilic, honestly. Oh, Diaz, speaking of Diaz. Oh! His first goal for the club. Next is the highly versatile Humberto Garcia, 20-year-old Colombian, only on £230 a week. But what we're really buying with him is the potential. That and the fact that he can play in CM, DM, and CB. Next up is 21-year-old Colombian John Navia. He is a left back, but he is entirely right-footed, so the lesser spotted natural inverted wing back. And we are training him to play on the right-hand side. It's just taking a little while. The last of that initial batch is this chap here, Jake LaCava. He's actually American, not Colombian, but he's an honorary Colombian. He came in with the others. Relatively cheap wages and another talented player that we were able to bring in entirely for free. The reason he's called Jake Cake, I was trying to rename him Jake Cave, but then I completely misspelled it, didn't notice for 2 hours, and now it's just stuck because who wouldn't want a player called Jake Cake? Next is an absolutely stunning talent in Amadou Ndiaye, 20-year-old Senegalese left back. He's going to give us so much depth to this team. We picked him up for 69k, rising to 83,000. He already has 2 caps for Senegal, still isn't on that much money, and really is showing huge signs of being able to develop, and possibly by next season could well be our starting left back ahead of Simon Medjed. Then we go back to Colombia with Christian Arrieta. Slightly more wages this time around. He was not from the initial batch. He's still a fabulous player though, and we needed someone to play at right back for us, as unfortunately we were unable to extend the loan of Van Genekten. Eupen said that they wanted him to play in a different environment. I'm not entirely sure what they meant by that, as he didn't really play for them this season. So while he was busy trekking through the jungle, all, we were busy forgetting all about him with our lovely Colombian friend here. 3k a week did put him on the high end of our wage bill, but I still believe he was worth it. Had some injuries at the start of the season which sort of stymied his progress initially, but he still had a decent year, even if it hasn't been quite the attacking output that we might have hoped for. Marin Ljubic joined us again on a free transfer to be our starting goalkeeper for the first half of the season. We were looking at a few other different goalkeepers, and he was somewhat third or fourth choice in that, one of whom was Drake Callender. He eventually chose to join Puskás, and judging on this, I was telling chat earlier about our friend that used to constantly bang on about haunting at Hill House, as after Holocaust's done it. The keeper chests it for no reason when he could just head this. Drake Callender, the man we nearly signed in the off-season, he chose to join Puskás and then he does that against us. Oh, someone's put something up Drake's passage. It would suggest that we may well have actually dodged a bullet, since our main goalkeeper from last year was on loan from NEC, Robin Roofs, and our other goalkeeper left the club at the end of the season. We needed someone to tide us over until the arrival of the big deal goalkeeper that we'll talk about in a second. Next, we dropped £84,000 on Génération Foot's Moumar Diop, and I don't really think I need to explain why we did such a thing, especially with the wages that he accepted of £575 a week. He is very much an absolute bargain that you simply must pick up if you get the chance. And some of that competition came in the form of Labassi Ngom, available for £69,000. That's our third Senegalese signing of this summer as well, but you can again see why we were so interested in him. Different type of player as well, very different to Diop. He's more of a finisher. They both play in that same position, but also Ngom can do a job as a striker. How long we hold on to these guys is going to be a very different question for us, given how good they hopefully will become. Petar Bosancic then joined us on a free transfer to really bolster that defence, and I think he does a fantastic job of filling in where Sipe left, and he's on less wages than Sipe would have been. But our biggest outlay of the summer came on this man here, Stjepan Radilic, and I say biggest because I literally mean biggest. When we saw that this guy he was 6'6" and had 20 jumping reach, it was pretty much my dream. Bosnian centre-back, enormous man, £185,000 we paid from Sheriff Tiraspol, and honestly, I would have paid 300. That was our limit on him. Then came Enrique Pereira, a left/right-sided player, released by Benfica of all teams, and actually joined us. Now, he does become, I believe, our highest paid player, but when a player of this kind of quality becomes available, you'd almost be silly not to take him. Owen Beck also joined us on loan from Liverpool for the season to provide a little bit of backup, but what it really just meant was I got to do a monthly phone call with Jurgen Klopp where he asked me why Owen Beck was playing as a left wing-back instead of a left wing-back. Anderson also joined us on loan from Sao Paulo for the season. This was due to Arrieta getting a 2-month injury towards the start of the season and us just needing more depth there. However, he has been extremely annoying as I criticised the team in a team talk after we lost. He then threw a massive strop about it. Took 2 months to build a bridge and get over it. Coming in on the right-hand side of things was Juan Fernando Asprilla, a final Colombian signing. We thought just one more over the line would be nice, just to give us a little bit more options in those wide areas. And that's actually weirdly an area that I think we need to strengthen in coming into the new season as it goes. Our last signing, Nathaniel Nwusu. It's the last one, but it's a big one. This is a chap I've been wanting to bring in for a very long time. We've been preparing this transfer for ages. Nigerian, 18 years old, already 2.5 stars, huge potential it would seem. Now, I'm going to be making a full video about this chap because I believe he's one of the most underrated wonder kids, if you like, of FM23, so expect that at some point soon. He's still been good enough to be our starting goalkeeper upon joining us at the age of 18. So for free, which is how much you can pick him up for, I think you'd be silly not to if you can. Free transfers at the start of a second season for me are actually probably more important than the first season, which is why at some point relatively soon I'm going to be making a video about some of the best players that you can pick up for free at the start of your second season, because I think that sometimes goes underrepresented, if you like. So stay tuned for that. Cooper, I'm sure you're new here. We have a follow alert that actually says, Cooper, do not hate me. I was hoping that it was going to trigger that, but it didn't. That would have been perfect.
Cooper, do not hate me. I am familiar with over 600 dance moves and I am programmed to get freaky.
The timing on that. Now, tactically, for the first half of this season, our approach remained entirely the same. We wanted to play good football and hope to sort of impose ourselves on the league in any way we could without having to sacrifice too much of the cool style that we'd developed. However, there was a match engine patch midway through the season which did require a few little tweaks to be made at that point. The only one we actually made, though, was to move Bobby Abduholikov from being a pressing forward into an advanced forward. The main reason for that is with the slight changes to defensive AI, it felt that the pressing forward was no longer able to be quite as effective. But that then begs the question, how did we actually get on in the league in our first season back in the top flight? Pretty damn well. We got a 1-1 draw away at Ferencváros on the opening day of the season, them of course being the reigning champions. That was the game in which Arrieta picked up the injury that forced us to bring Einelson in. We got our first win of the season away at fellow newly promoted side Jury by 4 goals to 2, and we're then able to parlay that into a huge victory against Molfehova by 2-1 with Panache scoring both of them, giving us 7 points from our first 3 games until we were immediately brought back down to earth with a pretty comfortable 2-1 defeat away at Puskás. But then incredibly, 4 straight league wins followed, which was then ended by a 2-0 defeat at home against high-flying Honved, but still pulled us right back into, incredibly, a title race. We also continued to progress through the cup, despite the fact that the board had set the absolutely ludicrous expectation of us getting to the semi-finals whilst being a newly promoted side. More on that in a bit. We then entered another great little run of form, getting a few more victories and once again taking a 2-2 draw with Ferencváros where we possibly could have even won before once more falling to Budapest Honved for the second time this season. All of this left us third at the Christmas break, a whopping 28 points clear of the drop zone and very much looking well on the cards for potentially a shot at some European football next year. And if we played our cards right, you never know. Unfortunately, after Christmas, things took a bit of a turn, losing 1-0 at home against Debrecen to their only shot on target. The following week, it actually got worse as we drew 2-2 against Kecskemét, with their 2 only shots on target being their 2 goals. So 3 shots on target in 2 matches, and we conceded all of them, costing us a lot of points and dropping us way down the league. However, we used that as a catalyst, and over the next 7 matches, we picked up 7 consecutive league victories to amazingly pull ourselves up to top of the league by 3 points with only 8 matches to go. Surely we couldn't win the league title in our first season back in the top flight. Unfortunately, in the middle of all that, we were once again beaten by Budapest Honved and knocked out of the Magyar Cup at the 5th round, and then followed one of the most bizarre things I've imagined. Except I didn't imagine it. That's the problem. I realise that's all fun enough, but what the fuck is this? Why did they expect us to reach the semi-finals of the cup as a newly promoted side? The only options I had were semi-final of the cup and final. The players are pissed. You were the players! You are the ones responsible for this! Like, you are the ones that were on the pitch that could have impacted this result. I'm not happy about our failure to reach the Magyar Cup final. Wait, what? That wasn't even the expectation. Our 7-game winning run was then brought to an end by, would you believe it, Budapest Honved. They beat us 4 times this season. Every single time we played them, we lost. I'm fairly certain over the whole of this season, over half of our defeats came against Budapest Honved. We were then able to string 3 straight victories together to get ourselves going again, but unfortunately, a disappointing 0-0 draw at home against Újpest allowed Ferencváros to take the lead off of us with just a few matches to go, and it looked like we were probably going to fall slightly short. But then, a 3-1 victory away at Puskás featuring that hilarious goalkeeping error allowed us to set up a showdown against Ferencváros with 2 games to go. If we could draw there, we'd be in the driving seat for the league title. If we lost, we were out of it entirely. And if we won, we were all but champions. And then this happened. That's right now as Zacharias, and it's a tight angle. What a block. Oh, for fuck's sake. With the deflected cross that bounces over our defender's head. So in the end, a little bit unfortunate to lose the game 1-0. Obviously, they were the better side, mostly down to that chance, but goddamn, if we could have just kept that draw, and that allowed them to win the title on that day as they moved 4 points clear of us. Still an incredible achievement for us to get 73 points and come second in our first season up in the top flight. Just to show you what I mean there. Just half of our league defeats came against Budapest Honved. But that's just how it is. They had a great season too, qualifying in 3rd spot and also getting Conference League. Well, notice Debrecen down in 6th, getting the Europa League. So they somehow managed to win the cup, and that is the reason that we didn't get Europa League. Bobby's magic in the second half of the season saw him score 24 goals in total and finish as the league's top scorer. You'll also notice that Moses Jarju, second highest rating in the league, and was right in contention for Player of the Year. He is a very strange gentleman. He's managed to make every single storyline this year pretty much about him. From being worried about being replaced by players that I brought in not even to play in his position, to redlocking facilities upgrades in a contract extension and then blaming me when the board said no, to somehow finding himself on corners, free kicks and penalties and yet doing a delicious job of all 3 of them. We've now come to suspect that Moses Jarju is in fact just Gideon without the costume. We've still got that youth intake to talk about, but bear with. Other Hungarian sides in Europe, Ferencváros were pretty much leading the way as always. The others were really unable to hold their weight. They did get through a couple of rounds, but nothing major and didn't get to any group stages. Ferencváros, of course, were the exception, as this year they once again got to the group stages of the Europa League, but incredibly managed to get through a group that featured Rangers, Feyenoord and Rapid Bucharest, and they only narrowly missed out on winning the group, as they found themselves against Wolfsburg and only went out on penalties and were able to get a victory against them, which was good for coefficient. However, it would have set up a tie against Manchester United in the next round anyway, and I do believe that it would have just been that little bit better had they won that group. They still earned us 6.125 points, which is still growth, and will allow us to move up yet again 1 more position in the coefficient charts. This time we leap above Cyprus, but they're doing this without us. Next year, we enter the equation and they'll still be in there as well. And I think this is the year when things really start to ramp up. Okay, so youth intake. Let's talk about this, because we got probably one of the best youth intake previews I've ever seen. And this is what we actually ended up with in the end. I don't think I need to explain to you how unbelievably excellent this youth intake was. 5 5-star players, one who's nearly a 5-star player to go with it. I'm going to run you through all 6 of these key guys, but most of them quite briefly because there's one guy I want to talk about a bit more. We had Janos Satmari, an incredibly good looking centre-back, 16 tackling of natural, which is just ridiculous. Unfortunately, only the 5'11 and 9 jumping reach, so there is a bit of that, but potentially as a defensive midfielder, he could be an absolutely incredible player, especially with that good personality and determination. There's also Mate V, a striker that can't finish and is actually more of a winger. He's got great pace, he's got good crossing and dribbling. He will be playing out wide when he eventually comes through, although he does have an injury currently. Then there was Ryman Krekska, sort of an attacking midfield option, and again, he is not the quickest. He's very much a player that will have to play through the centre with that passing and vision. And there's another centre-back in the form of Mateus Surka, again, slightly more dominant in the air this time, 13 jumping reach, 6'1", lacking a bit of strength. We've noticed that a lot, but then often with younger players, they do take a little while to develop that. You'll also have been noticing that a lot of these players, I believe 5 of the 6 guys that came through as those elite talents are all like 2-footed. Then there's Tamash Kakeji, a sort of central midfielder, probably one of the least interesting prospects of the bunch. This is Adam Vereb. 16 years old, only just. He's actually born on 420. The man is a meme in the making. He is just ridiculous to be this good at the age of 16. Now, few things that we need to talk about with him. He has unambitious personality and his determination is kind of mid. So there's definitely those things to work on. Low consistency as well, which isn't fantastic either. Great on both feet though. Wonderful technical ability, good mentals. We've broken our cardinal rule with him and are actually setting up mentoring specifically for this player because I really want to nurture this lad and turn him into an absolute wunderkind. But we want to make sure that we get the most out of this player because I believe there's a genuine star in this chap. On the statistics side of things, you can see Jarju absolutely dominated things this year with 4 goals, 4 assists. He was just everywhere. And as a result, well, that's why he was so high up. Radelic again was a similar story. Man chipped him with 7 goals this season, even got 2 assists. And not only that, 21 key headers for Radelic. Juan Pablo Diaz really stuck out to me this season. He got 2 goals, of course. They were both bangers, and got 5 assists as well from that roaming playmaker role. But he just looks so comfortable there. And he just did a lot of the things that Booty did for us last year, but just to a completely different level. Bovey obviously had his spectacular season with 26 goals in all competitions off of an XG of 19.71. Carvajal also played a decent amount for us this year. Didn't ever get to use those long shots to score a goal, but he just kept the base of the midfield extremely tidy, chipped in a couple of assists. And Gom chipped in a decent amount of goals, but possibly could have got a few more. He got a brace in one game and we felt, right, he was onto something, but actually, I think he really should have been looking at more like 6 or 7 this year, but he's still young, plenty of time to improve. Lubitsch did a genuinely excellent job in the first half of the year until Nowusu had joined us, and honestly, it means that we've got a really capable set of hands just in case things do go wrong. Bosancic, Mejes, and Arietta just had solid seasons, if nothing spectacular from them. One thing I would say about Arietta is that last year Van Connecten got us 10 assists. This year, just the 1 for Arietta. However, I suspect that with us being a newly promoted side, other teams are stronger. Last year we were so dominant, there was a bit of that about him as well. Pereira and Kapralik, the more dominant wide men, were absolutely excellent this season, contributing to 13 and 14 goals respectively, each this year, 7 and 5, and then 8 and 7 on the assists. They were both just brilliant players, basically. I would like to see one of them crack double figures at some point, but I think that will come with time. As for the finances side of things, you can see that, well, actually at one point we were 4.5 million down. We've gained a bit of money just on account of prize money and whatnot, sponsorships, all that stuff at the end of a season. Our budget for this year is actually less, which is not ideal. They dropped our wage budget down by £4,000 a week, so we're actually working on less money, and also they left our transfer budget alone. So we're right now not in the best shape. We still have 15k to spend in wage budget, and I'm going to have to try and spend some of it because we need to strengthen this squad in certain places. It's just going to be more of a pinpointed, targeted window, I suspect. That's going to be our main goal over on stream right now because we don't have the money to splash around anymore. We need to just kind of laser focus in on a few positions to make this team ready. The aims for this season really is to try to do exactly the same thing again. We want to be in the title race the entire year, slowly see some of these young players start to improve because that is going to be a factor. They will just get better without us having to sign anybody as well. Try to make sure that we get in the group stages, but that could be hugely down to luck. We could draw against the 7th best English side in one of these qualifiers for the Conference League and have no shot. It really is a bit of a luck of the draw situation. So like the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel for more of these, and happy nation building.